Thanks so much for today. I had a lot of fun and I'm completely full. Could you send me the group photo that you took today? I still haven't received the photo. I think you should have sent it to me already. There's always something unsettling about eating lunch at my drafting desk. Eleanor Warren stood beside me, arms crossed with her usual look of disapproval. Her sharp gaze swept over the scattered environmental impact assessments on my desk as I hurriedly finished my sandwich. I could feel the tension crackling in the air between us. Someone has to review these site plans, I replied, brushing away a stray crumb from my simple cotton blouse. At $30 from a local thrift store, it was a quiet reminder of my practical upbringing, something Eleanor never failed to look down on with her designer wardrobe. Or is it because you can't afford the restaurants where we successful developers dine? Her voice dripped with condescension, her smirk practically daring me to react as she gestured to my modest lunch. I met her gaze with a calm smile, refusing to take the bait. If only Eleanor knew I owned the historic wetlands she was so desperate to bulldoze for her luxury condos. She might have collapsed right there on my office floor. My name is Marie Hayes. I'm 32 years old, and a year ago I inherited a significant parcel of environmentally sensitive land from my grandfather. Rather than announcing my ownership, I chose to work as a building designer in the community, learning about local development from the inside out. Only 3 people knew the truth: my attorney Vanessa, my environmental consultant Liam, and my sister Olivia. Not even Nathan Fleming, the city councilman pushing Eleanor's development plans, knew my secret. Marie! Eleanor's voice yanked me from my thoughts. I need your assessment of the Riverside project by tomorrow morning, she ordered, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. I frowned slightly. That report isn't due until next week. Well, I need it tomorrow. Is that a problem? Her eyes locked onto mine, challenging me to refuse. Not at all, I answered, pushing aside my irritation. What Eleanor didn't realize was that the Riverside project was my focus all along. A comprehensive plan to expose the environmental violations and preserve the historic wetlands, including her position in the development company. Just then my phone vibrated. A message from Vanessa flashed across the screen. Environmental committee pushing for an emergency hearing. They want to discuss the Riverside project. Do we proceed? I hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Something felt wrong about the timing. Wait, I have an uneasy feeling about this. As I focused back on my work, I caught sight of Nathan striding through the community centre, radiating his usual air of political authority. We had met last year at a town fundraiser where I had played the role of an ordinary concerned citizen, blending into the crowd. He had been drawn to what he perceived as my professional knowledge and community dedication. Our professional relationship had been his initiative. He appreciated having a qualified architect who appeared to support progressive development. What he didn't know was that I had been carefully documenting his connections to questionable development deals this entire time. Nathan! Eleanor practically rushed toward him, her enthusiasm impossible to miss, high heels clicking loudly on the tile floor. Can we discuss the Riverside project modifications? Of course, Eleanor. In my office. Nathan walked past without even glancing in my direction, completely focused on her as they disappeared down the hallway. 2 hours later, Eleanor returned, practically glowing with confidence, a triumphant smile plastered across her face. Marie Hayes, I need you to pack up your things, she announced, satisfaction dripping from her voice as she stood over my desk. I looked up, confusion settling in my stomach like a cold stone. Excuse me? We've found serious flaws in your environmental assessments. You've been falsifying data about the Riverside project, she stated, her eyes gleaming with malice. That's completely absurd, I shot back, genuine indignation rising in my chest. Is it? She smirked. We have proof that you've conducted unauthorized soil samples on private property. Of course I had taken those samples. The land was mine. Eleanor, this is clearly a misunderstanding. Security, she cut me off, completely dismissing my protest with a wave of her manicured hand. Please escort Miss Hayes out of the building immediately. As the security guard approached, Nathan appeared, wearing a mask of disappointment that only fueled my anger. Marie, I'm disappointed, he sighed, shaking his head with theatrical concern. I can't believe you would compromise your professional integrity like this. I narrowed my eyes, disbelief washing over me. You too, Nathan? As a city councilman, I can't ignore falsified environmental data. Not even from someone I respected professionally, he stated coldly, his voice devoid of any genuine emotion. Eleanor's smirk deepened, clearly relishing my humiliation. Environmental saboteur, she sneered as security approached me. You'll never work in this county again. As they walked me toward the exit, I heard her syrupy voice addressing Nathan. Now that we've handled that obstacle, how about dinner? We can discuss the accelerated timeline for breaking ground. Sitting in the parking lot, trying to process the whirlwind of events, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Vanessa. Do you want me to reveal your land ownership now? Not yet. Wait 3 more months. I want to see what else they do with the project. A quiet determination settled over me. I placed my phone down and started my car, a 2010 Honda Civic, another intentional choice reflecting the practical values Eleanor and Nathan never understood or respected. As I pulled out of the lot, a small smile formed on my lips. The environmental committee hearing was approaching. And sometimes the best revenge is simply waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. For the next 3 months, I worked from the background, watching as Nathan and Eleanor systematically dismantled all the environmental protections I had documented for the Riverside project. It was heartbreaking to see my careful work being ignored and overridden. The soil analysis doesn't lie, Liam, my meticulous environmental consultant said over the phone. His tone was professional yet reassuring. They've concealed evidence of 3 protected species on that wetland, and the runoff analysis they're using is completely fabricated. And those falsified reports they used to discredit you? Eleanor created them with her administrative access to the planning database. Their scientific methodology is embarrassingly flawed. Just then, Vanessa entered my home office, a converted sunroom in my modest house that Nathan had never once visited during our professional relationship. This was my real workspace, filled with the genuine environmental data and historical surveys he had always dismissed. The environmental committee is in an uproar, Vanessa said, dropping a stack of files onto my desk with a solid thud. The sound echoed through the otherwise peaceful room. The Riverside project has raised serious red flags with state regulators, and they know it. Meanwhile, Nathan has filed a complaint with the Architectural Licensing Board, citing unethical conduct and falsification of environmental data. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony, feeling a surge of righteous anger. Perfect. Everything is prepared for next week? The emergency environmental hearing is scheduled for 1000 a.m. Tuesday. All committee members and state representatives have confirmed attendance, she replied, a look of satisfaction crossing her face. That night, as I sat in my office surrounded by the truth in the form of soil samples and wildlife surveys, my phone vibrated with a message from Nathan. I'm sorry it had to end this way, Marie. But falsifying environmental data, what were you thinking? The licensing board complaint has been filed. Don't fight this. There's no need for this to damage your future prospects. I stared at the screen, considering a response. Then deciding it wasn't worth my time or energy, I let the message sit there unanswered. The next Tuesday morning, I arrived at the county administrative building, dressed in a professional tailored suit. A small indulgence compared to my usual practical attire. The fabric felt crisp and empowering against my skin, a stark contrast to the betrayal and frustration I had endured. As I walked through the lobby, the receptionist who had witnessed my humiliating exit 3 months ago froze, her face pale with shock. "Ms. Hayes, you can't be here," she stammered, eyes wide with disbelief. "Actually, I can," I said, my voice steady with quiet confidence. "Check with security. I'm scheduled to present at the Environmental Committee hearing." Inside the hearing room, Nathan sat at the head of the long oak table with Eleanor beside him, looking more like his campaign donor than a professional developer. Seeing them together made my stomach clench with disgust, but I maintained my composure. "What is she doing here?" Eleanor shot up from her chair, her expression twisting with outrage as her eyes darted between Nathan and me. "Sit down, Eleanor," I said, my tone even but firm. "This hearing concerns you directly. You don't get to give me orders." "Nathan, do something," she shrieked, panic beginning to edge into her voice. Nathan looked just as unsettled as she did, his brows furrowing in confusion. "Marie, you were removed from this project," he started, attempting to regain control of the situation. Before he could finish, Vanessa entered with Liam, pushing a cart stacked with labelled soil samples, wildlife surveys, and detailed maps. The entire atmosphere shifted as they stepped into the room, their professional presence commanding attention. "Ladies and gentlemen of the committee," Vanessa began smoothly, her voice measured and authoritative. Allow me to introduce Marie Hayes, rightful owner of 60% of the Riverside wetlands and granddaughter of Edward Hayes, the conservationist who originally protected this land. Silence fell over the room, thick and heavy. Then Eleanor let out a nervous laugh, a feeble attempt to downplay the revelation. This is ridiculous. She's a junior architect. An environmental saboteur. No, Vanessa corrected, completely unshaken. She is the granddaughter of Edward Hayes, the county's pioneering conservationist. And for the past year, she has been documenting the environmental impact of this administration's development plans. Nathan went pale, the realization hitting him visibly hard. But we had a professional relationship. Yes, Nathan, I replied, my voice unwavering. I worked with you to determine whether you were the environmental steward this community needed. Unfortunately, you failed spectacularly. Eleanor's head snapped toward him, panic flashing across her face. She's lying, Nathan, don't listen to her. I ignored her desperate protests, keeping my focus on the committee members. Would you prefer to review the evidence of the endangered species habitat destruction first? Or should we begin with the falsified water quality reports used to justify my professional dismissal? Nathan shot up from his chair, scrambling to regain control of the rapidly deteriorating situation. There must be some misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I asked, opening my laptop and connecting it to the projector. Are you referring to the 3 protected species whose habitats would be destroyed? Or perhaps the toxic runoff that would flow directly into the community's water supply? Eleanor frantically gathered her papers, visibly rattled. I have an important meeting. Sit down, I ordered firmly. The state environmental officers are waiting outside. They have several questions about those falsified environmental impact reports. The room fell into a tense silence. Some committee members took furious notes. Others exchanged concerned glances as they absorbed the evidence presented to them. Ladies and gentlemen, I continued, my voice steady, carrying the weight of truth. For the past year, I have worked within this community, learning every facet of its environmental needs. I've analysed soil samples, studied wildlife patterns, and what I've uncovered is deeply troubling. With a single click, a series of detailed maps and charts illuminated the large screen at the front of the room. The vibrant visuals immediately commanded everyone's attention. Under Mr. Fleming's oversight, environmental protections have been weakened by 40%. That's a devastating regression, one that directly threatens our community's natural resources and quality of life. Development approval times have been shortened to reckless levels, bypassing crucial safeguards that should protect our wetlands and wildlife. Nathan scoffed, frustration tightening his expression. That's not fair. I've created economic opportunities. Oh, you mean the opportunities that primarily benefit companies secretly connected to Eleanor's development firm? I raised an eyebrow, letting the weight of my words sink in. Yes, we uncovered that too, along with a paper trail of suspicious campaign contributions leading directly back to your office. Liam, ever the professional, stepped forward with quiet confidence, distributing detailed scientific reports to the committee. As you'll see, he said calmly, his tone authoritative, the Riverside Project, the very initiative Ms. Warren falsely accused Marie of sabotaging, contains critical habitat for 3 protected species. These findings aren't just about one development. They're about the environmental future of our entire community. Nathan's expression shifted, desperation flickering in his eyes like a cornered animal searching for escape. Marie, please, we can work this out. We've had a good professional relationship. Surely we can find a compromise. I sighed, his words ringing hollow in my ears. Reaching into my portfolio, I retrieved another folder and placed it on the table with a firm thud. About that, I began, letting the moment stretch before continuing. Here is my formal complaint to the State Ethics Committee. It includes all evidence of your zoning violations, environmental negligence, and conflicts of interest during your time in office. His face paled, disbelief and fear settling in as the weight of my words sank in. You can't do this to me. Oh? The same way you couldn't defend me when I was falsely accused? The same way you couldn't resist damaging critical wetlands or maintain ethical standards? My voice remained steady, each word cutting through the tension like a stone breaking the surface of still water, sending ripples of unease through the room. I turned to Eleanor. She had gone rigid, her face drained of colour. Slowly, she sank back into her chair. Her confidence shattered as reality unfolded before her. As of this moment, I announced, unwavering, I am formally requesting that the Riverside Development Project be suspended pending a full environmental review. State environmental officers will need to interview both of you regarding the falsified reports. You can't stop this development, Eleanor shrieked as two uniformed environmental officers entered, their presence immediately changing the atmosphere. Panic laced her voice as she pointed accusingly. This was all Nathan's idea. My idea, Nathan snapped, his anger flaring as he turned on her. You were the one who created those falsified reports. As they continued arguing, I turned back to the committee, my resolve strengthening with every word. The riverside wetlands were protected by my grandfather with one vision: to preserve natural habitats that sustain our community and connect us to our past. Along the way, that vision was compromised, buried under greed and short-sighted development. Today we begin again, realigning with that mission and ensuring environmental accountability at every level. 1 year later, the riverside area was transformed. The wetlands had been officially designated as a protected conservation area, with carefully designed nature trails and an environmental education centre at its heart. With the preservation plan properly implemented, biodiversity had increased by 70%. We had recruited passionate environmental educators, revitalised community involvement, and reignited our commitment to sustainable development, restoring the vision my grandfather had when he first protected this land. The once threatened wetlands now teemed with life. Creativity and genuine community collaboration flowed freely, replacing the greed and short-sighted planning that had once threatened this precious ecosystem. Community members who had been silenced by powerful interests now spoke with confidence, their voices filled with excitement about the environmental future ahead. This was no longer just a piece of land. It had become a thriving community asset united by a shared goal to protect our environmental legacy. Meanwhile, Eleanor and Nathan faced the consequences of their actions. With their professional reputations in ruins and careers in jeopardy, the weight of their environmental violations pressed down on them as their hearings approached next month. It served as a powerful reminder that every decision carries lasting impacts on both nature and community. The Environmental Committee had taken a firm stance, making it clear that ecological destruction would not be tolerated. Our community's natural heritage would be safeguarded at all costs. With their fate sealed, the once formidable duo now stood at the brink of complete professional downfall, their legacies irreversibly damaged. As for me, I had established a new architectural practice focused on sustainable design, though it was more than just a business. Now located near the Conservation Centre, it stood as a symbol of perseverance and dedication to environmental principles. Balancing my responsibilities with purpose, I was committed to guiding the community towards sustainable development while ensuring our natural resources thrived for future generations. Every design I created was guided by a vision of environmental integrity and building a stronger, more sustainable future. Some community members still gave me curious glances when they saw me volunteering at the wetlands, a mix of respect and admiration in their eyes. To them, I represented resilience, the proof that standing up for what's right eventually pays off. I had learned that the best ideas come from staying connected to the land and the community it serves. I wanted to be part of the solution, sharing both victories and challenges, reinforcing the belief that we were all stewards of this precious environment. My grandfather used to say, power isn't in titles or money, it's in protecting what truly matters. Over the past year, I had come to fully understand the truth in those words. Real leadership doesn't come from political office, but from the courage to stand firm for environmental principles. It's about the choices made when faced with difficult decisions and the values upheld even when pressured to compromise. He was right. Sometimes you have to risk everything, or at least make it seem like you have, to truly understand what you're fighting for. The journey isn't about recognition or prestigious positions. It's about authenticity, environmental integrity, and staying true to one's values. And as for that 2010 Honda Civic, I kept it, a small but powerful reminder of where I started and the lessons I had learned along the way. It symbolized resilience, practicality, and the understanding that success isn't defined by luxury or status, but by the positive impact made on the world around us. As I looked out over the restored wetlands, watching the ecosystem pulse with life and endless possibilities, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, we would protect our natural heritage, reclaim our community's environmental values, and set a course toward a future built on sustainability and respect for nature. The path ahead was clear, and I was ready to embrace it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. See you next time.